Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mysterious Galaxy live stream. I am going to let our wonderful authors introduce themselves and sneak away off of the screen. But make sure if you have questions, put them down in the comments section below, and you guys are in for a fun event tonight.
All right, you guys.
Take it away.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Nicholas, how are you?
How's it going, Scott?
Going very well. We've had a few technical issues to get this party started, but
we're here.
I think what we're going to do now is, in the showbiz, we're going to vamp while we see if give people a little bit of time to jump in. Looks like you have quite the office set up there, sir.
Yeah. This is where most of the magic happens, although I am missing the coffee shops.
Yeah.
Really miss leaving the house in general, but
I miss bars and dinner. Those are the things that are
yeah. Yeah, at least we can get takeout, but that's about it, right? Hey, you have your bar?
I'm still wary of the takeout. I'm just like, you know what? Let's just wait it out a little bit more. Since the start, we've been in lockdown a long time. We've had one pizza. That's all we've had. So
yeah, man, you've gone without.
Yeah, fortunately, Kovacs is an incredible cook. So I'm eating like a king and putting on weight like mad. And as soon as this deadline's over, I'll get out.
Nice. Yeah. So you're writing Mount Fitzroy right now, and I just heard you say that you're writing 12, 14-hour days. Is that right?
Yeah, we're in the continuity edit has come back, and there's a few things to tweak there. As soon as this is done, it goes to the publisher, and then I'm largely out. But I'm way behind.
How long
this book? Way behind because it's 250,000 word book, and I'm never doing this again, and it was too much.
Yeah, that's like three Sons of Wars. No, 2.5, but still, it's
yeah. I've got to learn to write more concisely. Once I was given, you hear that phrase, give someone enough rope to hang themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That was this. They were like, yeah, write as long as you want. It's cool. And I'm like that. I don't operate well, and I need structure and control. Control me a little bit.
Well, fans are ready for it. I'm ready for it.
Oh,
can't wait to listen to Ray Porter.
Yeah, Ray Porter, who is doing Sons of. We have 18 people in the chat room in the room now. So cool. I think we should get this party started. What do you think, sir?
Okay. Yeah, let's go for it.
You mentioned Ray Porter, who did the audiobook for Sons of War, which is your new novel, which I'm listening to right now. Ray also did my book Earthcore and Fitzroy, which I'm working on. So it's a nice, he's a lovely voice, lovely dude. Have you met Ray in person?
I have not, no.
Oh, just a scholar and a gentleman, fantastic. He actually went out to dinner with my business partner and I took my whole family out. It was at a Comic-Con. So he came out, and my 2 young nieces were out there, and he was just the most wonderful, nice guy you could ever ask to come out anywhere. So he's killing Sons of War. Sons of War.
Yeah, he's got an amazing voice.
Amazing voice. Sons of War is your brand new book.
Mm-hmm.
And this I'm seeing now. This is in a series, which I did not know when I started it. How many books are going to be in this series?
So I've written 3 so far. They're all done. I've been working on these kind of in between my Helldivers series for the past 3 years. So there could potentially be more later on. But at this point, we have Sons of War. And then book 2 is called Sons of War Saints. And then book 3 is Sons of War Sinners. And Saints comes out in September, and Sinners will probably come out early next year. They're all edited and kind of just in the pipeline, ready to go. Helldivers 7 is my next book up with Blackstone Publishing, is the publisher of all formats here. They do my Helldivers series as well.
So you're very prolific. You write several series. You put books out at a pretty regular clip. And when I tell people about you, I mention that you're one of those guys.
Very
nice. You are one of those guys that has an enormous readership, an enormous listenership. I describe you as one of the people, one of the biggest writers that you've never heard of. That your reach in ebooks in particular, in audiobooks, is very, very significant. And since you're not out with a Random House or something like that, it seems like you fly a little bit under the radar, but your your sales and your numbers are very, very, very significant. Is that a conscious choice on your part, or is it just kind of worked out that way that you saw opportunities where other people weren't taking advantage of them?
Well, I got my start in indie publishing, so self-publishing some books. I should show my I'm gonna lift my computer up here for a second.
Okay.
Just to kind of, so this is kind of my rack of books that I've written the past 7 years, and I got my start with Orbs, the Orbs series, self-published on Amazon, and that series went viral back in like 2014 and landed me a deal with Simon & Schuster. So that was really like my first traditional published deal. I've since got the rights back to those and I've self-published them again. But really, like, I've built my audience. I also have so my Extinction Cycle. There's 7 books in season 1 and book 4 of season 2 is coming out soon. But these are published by Orbit now. At least season 1 is. So I do have traditional publishers. Blackstone's traditional publisher, but really where I got my start was self-publishing, and that's where I really built my audience. And so, like, if you go to like a con or bookstores, I mean, bookstores Barnes & Noble do carry these books, but you probably haven't heard of me because most of my audience is going to be on Audible and Amazon Kindle.
And that's something that people don't know. We cultivate our audiences.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn my other light on here.
Yeah, but cultivate audiences independently, somewhat away from the bright lights of the big city, if you will. And you and I both have had a pretty solid career. I noticed that a lot of authors get signed, they get a deal, they get a lot of publicity for their first book. And then unless they are George R. R. Martin or Neil Gaiman, that publicity drops off and they're left flat-footed. They don't know what to do, but you built your career on doing your own marketing, your own audience outreach, figuring out how to expand. Do you think that is a central focus of why you are having the success you're having?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I was doing quite a bit of coaching other authors just because of my background, and now I'm just so busy. I've been writing, but I used to say, like, to all my clients or to my author people that I was coaching, that you really need to understand the business and you have to treat writing like a business in order to be successful, especially with the way the market is these days. So a lot of my author friends that are successful through Amazon, Audible, they're self-publishing their books. I have quite a few friends that are in the traditional world too. I'm in the middle. I'm a hybrid author. So I kind of pick and choose. I look to see what the best deal is or how to reach a certain audience through, depending on the publisher. But really, I think my business sense and just how I've learned and taught myself how to market has been key to the success that I've seen, especially in ebooks. There's a ton of different courses out there now. There's a lot of different author coaches that make their entire business on coaching and teaching you how to run Facebook ads, Amazon's ads. Of course, there's other courses on how to write to market, what's popular, things like that. So I spend, a fair amount of time each week watching the market and trying to adapt to the market because it's constantly changing. So yeah, in short, I think having a business mind in this business is important for sure.
It's rare. Unfortunately, it's kind of rare to find people who are talented writers who put in the wrench time like you do to make these very detailed, consistent series where the books produce, book after book they produce, very cinematic feel to them. It feels like watching a movie, and yet you're also hammering away on the business side.
Yeah.
And as we get to cons, we watch some of our contemporaries count fully on the publishing house to do all their work for them. They can struggle. They have a very difficult time.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, most publishers don't do that for you. I learned that a long time ago. I mean, you can get signed with a big house, but that doesn't mean you're not going to have to market your own book. You still have to build your own brand. And for some authors, that's a struggle because they don't necessarily want to engage readers. They just want to write. And unfortunately, yes, it's possible to still have success and just do nothing but write. but it's rarer, I think, because of how, especially the speed of publishing now. A lot of the successful indie authors are putting books out almost every month, every couple months. They're shorter books. They're not Scott Sigler, massive 250,000 words books. There's probably like, they're writing like 50, 60,000 words novels and putting them out. And it's kind of like the serial type strategy that Hugh Howey started back in when he really was the poster boy of self-publishing. So yeah, there's a lot of different strategies. I think you can be successful in quite a few different ones, but again, I think you still have to treat it like a business. You have to build your own brand and not rely on a publisher, because it's almost impossible to have like an organic hit these days where you don't have much help from either yourself, like you're not doing something on your own, or you're not having some help out externally. You can't just put a book out in the market and expect it to skyrocket, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So let's talk about the latest book you have, Sons of War. I've got a long description here, which I'll read very quickly. We'll get into some questions on that. We are fielding questions. I believe Constance is taking questions over on the Facebook side and in the Zoom side, but I'm not sure of that. She will feed the questions over.
Yeah, it looks like there's a couple in here.
Got one. Have you both ever think about co-authoring a book together? I've mentioned that in passing, and maybe that's someday, but both of us are so slammed right now trying to get our own stuff done. It's hard to imagine. But I'll tell you what, if we ever do collaborate on something, I'm going to let you control the size of the books, because I don't need to spend another 2.5 years of my life writing a 250,000 word book that I can't get out to my fans because it's so big I can't keep track of it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it'd be cool to do something Helldivers related, since you're a fan of that series, or you're a reader of that series. And I'm a fan of yours. Like Earthcore is a great book. I had my Alien shirt on because Scott just wrote Aliens Phalanx that came out, and it's a totally cool twist on the brand, I guess you'd call it, where it's almost like medieval fighting with old school spears and swords and knives, and it's just such a cool world that you developed. So if you guys like aliens, I highly recommend checking this book out. If you don't like aliens, if you've never heard of aliens, still check it out, because it's just a very unique premise, and the characters are just the amount of thought that you put into that world building would just amazed me, because you really created something entirely new for that, for the brand, really, right? I mean, there's nothing else out there like that in the alien world.
It was a little different, and Titan Books, who I did that with, Steve Sappler, Titan Books, was awesome, helping me figure out. And I've talked about that on my own feed a few times. Fox was great. People always say, oh, you can write a media tie-in, it's going to be a nightmare. I did not have that experience. Fox was fantastic to work with.
That's awesome.
Sons of War is set in a modern-day Los Angeles. Now, I freaked out because I was listening to it yesterday while I was out walking the dog, and the date was, I believe, the date mentioned in the book was April 20th, 2020.
Yeah.
And I was only a couple days away from the day you mentioned in the book. So I'll get back to that point in a second. Modern day Los Angeles during a nationwide economic and social collapse in the United States. U.S. on the brink of a civil war. California is threatening to secede from the Union. Climate issues have led to horrible drought in areas of the country, and floods and hurricanes in others. There's a nationwide food supply shortage. The global economy collapses after government bailouts result in a default of trillions of dollars in debt, inflation, and federal government shutdowns. The opioid epidemic is flaring up to a level never before seen. Citizens are rioting over food, gas, water, and the U.S. is placed under martial law. To make matters worse, there's a total loss of electricity in L.A., and at one point, after an attack on the biggest nuclear power plant in the country, the President of the United States also appears to have incredibly corrupt motives and builds up his own personal military called the AMP, the New American Military Patriots, that have little regard for the average civilian and see the existing branches of the military and law enforcement as the enemy of their cause. Amid this crumbling of civilizations, we know what? Gangs and criminal organizations see a huge opportunity to prey on the weak, gain control, and make deals to their own corrupt officials. I'll get back to all that in a second. However, the economy collapses after government bailouts result in a default on trillions of dollars in debt. And we've just had 2 rounds of government bailout thanks to COVID, heading into a 3rd round of government bailout. Did you write all of this before all of the COVID stuff happened and so many people were out of work?
So that's probably one of the most interesting things to me about this series, because I started writing these books 3 years ago, and publisher and I planned on putting these out back in like 2018, 2019. So 2020 would have still been in the future at the time.
Okay.
But my Helldivers series had really taken off, and we decided to kind of put these on the back burner and just keep putting out the Helldivers books. Plus I have a couple other series that I publish in between. So I started writing these like in 2017, Sons of War. At that time I thought, God, am I going to have readers criticize me thinking that I'm crazy to have a global economic collapse happening in 2020? Because our economy was thriving. And it was thriving up until February of this year, until COVID. But back then, my theory was if the trade war went south, that's what would cause some of the things that have happened in Sons of War. The other thing is I used to work for Homeland Security and Emergency Management, working hand in hand with FEMA on natural disasters and disaster mitigation planning. So some of the stuff in this book about, with the insurance companies going bankrupt because of these massive storms, hurricanes, droughts, those were things that have kind of that were inspired from my past career. So kind of a combination of things, but I am getting readers telling me I'm Nostradamus again. I had the same thing happen with my Tracker series. My biggest fear when I left my job at Homeland Security was an EMP attack, because I did not think that the US was ready for that, just based off of everything that I'd seen. So I started writing the Tracker series back in 2016. And the whole underlying premise for that was a North Korean attack on our grid. Okay. So then when those books started coming out was when we started having all the major missile launches with Kim Jong-un. And then, so I've had this happen before where readers are like, how did you come out with this? But really it's just based off my background and things that I think about, things that I watch happening. But yeah, it's kind of weird to see the bailouts for COVID and then talking about them in this book, literally the same month that it's happening in real life.
And you have to, if I was in your shoes, you have to wonder, is it beneficial this comes out right now when all this stuff is happening? Or would you have rather had it come out last year, taking the slings and arrows of people saying, what a ridiculous concept, this will never happen. And then you roll into this and you get to sit back and be like, yeah, I mean, obviously it could happen, it's happening now. Which do you feel is, in your writer and marketing mind, which is more beneficial to you?
It would have been more beneficial to wait, just because the market is so tough right now. Bookstores are closed. So that pretty much cuts off one line of revenue. Hardcovers aren't really moving because there's nowhere to sell them except for Amazon, but Amazon's mostly on essential products. So we launched this at probably the worst possible time. And the other thing is, yeah, I guess I'll just keep it at that. Like, I wish we would have held off, probably just finish the Helldivers series first, but it is what it is. I'm hoping that it will find an audience, and that people won't think that I'm a time traveler for now. Yeah, I think, this book to me it'd be great to have this hit the New York Times bestseller list or do something crazy like that, like my Helldivers series has. But to me, this was something I always wanted to write because I'm fascinated with the mafia, especially the real Italian mafia that still exists in Naples and Rome. So when I came up with the idea of Sons of War, I told the publisher, because initially this was going to be a space opera that I was contracted to write, and we totally switched it out. I started writing Sons of War. I'm like, I want to write more of these books. And it just became something I was very passionate about. So like the economic collapse and all that stuff aside, like this is this series that I think I feel like I always wanted to write. And I never really knew how fans what they would think of it or the timing of any of it. But yeah, it's just, I'm half Italian. My grandparents are both from Italy, or my mom's parents are from Italy, Italian immigrants that worked in the coal mining camps here in Iowa. And so I always kind of grew up learning about or hearing about the mafia as being what my grandpa called mamalukes. Like they obviously didn't respect. These are hardworking Italian immigrants that came over here to start anew, and they did not like the idea or they did not like organized crime, obviously. So, but I was still really like, I watched The Sopranos and all these Hollywood series, and I thought, I want to do something different. I want to really write a series that has the true, authentic Italian characters that are straight up from Naples. And we can talk about that too, more about the characters, but that's just a little bit of background on the inspiration behind it.
Yeah, and that, where I'm at in the book right now, and I'll avoid spoilers, but we're involved with the Moretti crime family. You open up with the Moretti crime family in Naples, and then due to circumstances, they wind up in Los Angeles. So right off the bat, like, this is something I've never seen before, and it's rare. And I think one of the things that you excel at is coming up with a spin on an idea that people have not seen before. The Helldivers, book one of the Helldivers, any one of my fans that followed me over here to watch this should absolutely get that book and read it, because I'm very jealous of that story idea. Very, very jealous. I wish I had thought of it. It's so cool. But now you've got what looks like we're going into some kind of apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic setup, the collapse of the United States. And it's a mob story. We have Don Antonio, who is trying to come up with a resurgence for his family. He has left Naples. He's now in Los Angeles. And we have a good old-fashioned American gangster story going on in the middle of a potential civil war in America and economic collapse. Is this, in your opinion, is this a apocalypse story, a collapse of America, or is it just a straight-up mob story?
It's kind of a combination. I was thinking about this earlier. And that can be tricky for an author. I think some fans are going to like that. Some fans aren't going to like it, or some readers rather. Because it really does play to a bunch of different audiences. But what I tried to do with Sons of War was write like a sprawling epic story with multiple different families in it. So Don Antonio Moretti is one of the Italian families. And then the Salvatore family is Ronaldo Salvatore is a Marine sergeant deployed to Afghanistan, comes back to the U.S. when troops are recalled. His son Dominic he ends up being a police officer. He's a character with that side. So you have good and bad. You have good versus evil, which is a huge theme in these books. And sometimes one of the quotes is you have in the center of this, or in the beginning of this book, we have quotes from both. So, underdogs have turned empires into ashes. We're going to build ours from the embers. That's Don Antonio Moretti. And then Marine Sergeant Ronaldo Salvatore says, sometimes you have to use evil to fight evil. So that actually, we've been using that in some of our ads, and that's gotten a lot of comments on it, because what is evil? How do you use evil to fight evil? Is it morally justified to use evil to fight evil? There's all sorts of different ways you can take that. And I'm not answering any of those comments at all. I'm just letting people kind of say what they want. But in the book, it explains that. So some of the good characters might have to turn evil themselves in order to save those they love. Others that are part of an evil organization might realize that that's not the path to choose. So there's all sorts of different situations and choices for these characters.
And evil varies, everybody's the hero of their own story. The evil guy on one side is the good guy on the other. And those comments can be difficult to work with and deflect, but America, considered to be the hero in most stories that we're familiar with, is the only country to drop a nuclear weapon on another city full of civilians. So as I look at, sometimes you have to use evil to fight evil. Perhaps it's the lesser of two evils. I haven't got to those parts in the book yet. I do want to look at the title a little bit. Why did you title this Sons of War? Now, obviously, we have sons in both of these families who, in the beginning of the book, are working their way up to more prominence in the story. But the fathers are very prominent as well. In this series, am I going to be seeing more? Do the sons gravitate up to become the main characters? Or is it still kind of a collage of influences?
It's a collage, but Vinny Moretti, he's the nephew of Don Antonio Moretti, and his father is Christopher Moretti, the brother of the Don. Vinny becomes a central character as well as Dominic. So really, in my view, it's more of their story than anyone's, but there's multiple main characters. I feel like in some of my books, I give one character like the majority of the page space. Like in Helldivers, X is without a doubt the main character. In Extinction Cycle, it's my character Beckham. In Trackers, it's Raven. But in Sons of War, that there isn't necessarily like one central character. There's quite a few. So yeah, the book's basically named after Vinny and Dominic and their kind of rise and struggles throughout the war, the aftermath, and I feel like there's a lot of foreshadowing in these titles too, because book 2 is called Saints and book 3 is called Sinners.
We got a few questions from the viewers. An easy one, hopefully an easy one. How many more novels in the Helldiver series?
So book 7 comes out July 14th, I believe it is. And book 7 ended up being like double the length of a normal Helldivers book. So it was kind of book 7 and 8. We just decided to put it out as book 7. I would love to do more Helldivers books. So I'm not going to say that I'm not writing more. I've already got an idea and I've started a little bit for a book 8, a true book 8. After that, I'm not sure. Like what I did with my Extinction Cycle was a season 2, just because fans really were asking me to explain what had happened after the war. And oftentimes I like to close a series when I feel like there's a good place to close it. I did that with Orbs in my Tracker series, and Extinction Cycle now with season 2 is coming to an end in June with book 4, Extinction Darkness. If you're watching this and you're a fan of Extinction Cycle, make sure that you pre-order that because that's my next book out. But Helldivers, this is such like an open world for me, and I love the characters. And I realized when I stopped writing book 7 last summer that I missed it so much. So I can't really answer that with a definite number, but I would say for sure 8. For sure 8. After that, I don't know.
I think these 2 questions, I'm going to guess these are probably related. 2 questions. When did you know you wanted to be an author? And what was the most influential book you read when you were younger? So when did you know you wanted to write?
So hold on a second, because I just saw this earlier. I'm like, are fans going to see this or people are going to see this? Because I have this little guy's tucked away here. This is the first book I ever wrote. I think my brother, maybe my wife, I can't remember who found this. It's called The Incredible Journey by Nick Smith. And I was also kind of a wannabe artist back then. You have your little like gun Civil War pistol, which actually is in this case back here. It's a real Civil War pistol, and Civil War sword that's from my family. And anyways, I love to write. I probably wrote this when I was like in 6th grade. I can tell you because I'm naming my friends here. All my friends were my characters: Charlie, Brett, Mike, Bennett, Eric. Anyways, I've always loved to write. I always wanted to be a published author. I remember in college, so I went to the University of Iowa and I took some classes at the writer's workshop there. And I think I was so intimidated because I realized how difficult it was, especially back then, to become published. This is pre-Amazon. This is pre-self-publishing. So it was just kind of a hobby. But my favorite book, hold on, I'll be right back.
All right. I'll vamp while he's gone. And we'll get to what the most influential book he read when he was younger. Me, it was Seawolf, but we'll get back to, here we go. What do you got?
I got The Forever War by Joel Haldeman.
Oh, yeah.
Which he signed at a con here in Iowa. This book just I don't know what it was about it. I just felt like it really, just the time travel and like the relationships in this book and all the things these characters go through. And it's really kind of like Vietnam in space. This won the Hugo Award and the Nubella Award. So I don't know. It's just one of those books. This and Armor is the other one I have. I really like space, military science fiction. I grew up reading that stuff. I also love B-rated stuff. I've read all the Doom books, Halo, Gears of War, Aliens. So those are kind of the stories that inspired me growing up too. It's like a mixture of really great prose versus just stuff that is very entertaining to me.
You like the action, clearly from what you write. You like the cinematic approach, Big Bang ending. So it's logical that you are writing kind of like the stuff that you dig. When it comes to your writing process, what is the most important part of that? Or is it, break it down for us real quick.
I think it's having an idea and knowing where I'm going with it, because I have so many ideas, but if I don't outline something, I just keep writing the wrong thing until I finally figure out what the right thing is. Mm-hmm. Like the newest book that I'm working on, this is probably the most I've struggled with a book besides Sons of War. I really need to have like a map guiding me to keep me going, because otherwise I just will edit the crap out of something until I'm happy with it. And it just drives me nuts, and I don't give up. I'm a very competitive person. So I'll sit there and stare at my computer for 2 hours if I have to, till my wife.
How do you correlate that instinct to keep editing till it's right with putting out the number of books that you put out? How do you decide where the middle ground is between I want to edit till it's right and I got to put food on the table, I got to get this book out?
Well, I normally don't have writer's block, and I write pretty fast. So I've never really struggled with putting things out to make money, so to speak, I guess. In the beginning I did. In the beginning I was worried because, my first deal was for Orbs with Simon & Schuster, and traditional publishing is very slow. So even if I have 3 books done, they're probably it's going to take 2 years to publish those books. Mm-hmm. And then you got to wait on the money. You might get some up front, but oftentimes it takes a long time to earn out of advance if you earn it out at all. So really what I did from the beginning was I jumped back into self-publishing when I realized, like, if I'm going to make a living, I need to have a steady income coming in monthly. So that's really what I did to kind of work through that. Was I had slow burn projects like Helldivers that I work on at nights and weekends, and then my self-published books like the Extinction Cycle that I'd work on during the day, and I put those out every 3 months, and then I waited for Helldivers. My agent pitched that wide. I think it took like 1.5 years before that book ever really got attention, and then it came out like 2 years after I wrote it.
Okay.
So yeah.
Our producer Constance points out that independent bookstores are selling your hardcover of Sons of War. People can get it through Mysterious Galaxy. Go to Google, search for Mysterious Galaxy San Diego. You will find that site, find Nicholas's book. It's on the Facebook page. You still can order the hardcover.
And I believe I'm signing book plates for those too. And thanks for pointing that out too. Like when I was talking earlier about bookstores being closed and stuff, I know like some independent stores do carry my books but I wasn't sure about Sons of War. I know Mysterious Galaxies did stock it for this event, right? So, and I'm doing book plates for people that buy them. I believe that's what we're doing. So anyways, yeah. I'll sign it.
For everybody watching, your brand is probably big enough now. You can call any independent bookstore. They'll be able to order that online. If they don't have it in stock, they can get it for you. They can get it to you, and try and patronize your local bookstores if you can. Amazon is fine, works great, but local bookstores are hurting badly right now in the middle of this COVID stuff. So when you want to buy a book, try and buy a book from your local bookstore. In this book, there's and this question's fed by the publisher, and I'm looking forward to this part, but I haven't gotten here yet. There's gripping scenes of refugee camps and temporary camps set up in LA, where the struggle to remain safe and get essentials is life and death. So again, this is a current event going on in America right now with people coming across the border and having to live in these particular situations. But how did your experience working in emergency management and disaster preparedness influence you as you wrote this book and these disaster response descriptions and depictions?
So oftentimes, like, I wasn't involved with Katrina. That was before my time. But there's a lot of examples throughout U.S. history, even in the past 20, 30 years, where you have displaced populations. And so I use some of those as examples, kind of as inspiration on how to frame these different scenes. But I took it to another level too, because we haven't really reached the type of refugee camps that I talk about in Sons of War, or that I write about in Sons of War. But I did do quite a bit of research in studying other countries that currently have refugee crises at their borders or inside their countries, where the UN or Doctors Without Borders are helping try to, mitigate all the different things that affect those populations. And that I tried to include those in these camps in Los Angeles in a way that was realistic, because I believe some of these camps in Los Angeles were actually like on golf courses or in open areas where I thought the government might actually put them. No, there's also quite a bit of trains that go through Los Angeles too. So I had refugees coming in on trains from other cities, because other cities were hit harder. And there's also, this is kind of a spoiler, but there are nukes that go off in Sons of War. So populations are fleeing the radioactive, the fallout, and then also just the violence too. So
question from the viewers: what projects are you currently working on, and what should readers be looking forward to? Now, I'm guessing you're going to put out 7 novels in the next 8 months. What would those 7 novels be?
I've actually slowed down considerably this year. Normally I write a book every 3 months. This is month 5, 2020, and I'm almost done with one. But yeah, so I'm like I'm pretty far behind this year in terms of what I normally put out. But I had a lot of editing projects. So Sons of War 2 and 3 will be coming out September and early 2021. And then Extinction Darkness is book 4 in season 2 of the Extinction Cycle. That is the end of the Extinction Cycle. And then Helldivers 7 comes out in July. So those are the books that I've already written that are coming out. I'm working on a new series that's, I don't know if I want to describe too much, but I've always wanted to write a series about AI and about like a Terminator style apocalypse. There's nothing scarier to me besides like aliens, like owl shaped aliens, than like a Terminator. So I'm kind of came up with this, what I think is a unique idea for a machine type book, because I want to try to put a spin on it again. And I'm not going to tell you how that is, because right now this project is I'm almost done with book 1, but there's still a lot of work to do. And I'm probably not going to announce it until later this year, just because I just put out Sons of War. So I don't want to have like 4 series going at once. I think it's important to focus.
Okay.
So
you clearly you listen to your fans, and even when you finish a series, when they're asking for more stuff, as a business person, obviously the marketplace that you want to, if the market wants product, you want to give them product. As an author yourself, you want to get back to that world. Where you're at right now in your career, do you know how you will figure out when a series is over? That's it, kaput, done. Or are these vines always growing for you, always waiting to produce new fruit?
Yeah, it kind of depends on a bunch of different factors. One, I really need to be into the story still. I don't want to, you can probably relate to this. Like Mount Fitzroy for you, that's been a project that's probably been pretty difficult because of how long it's taken you. Mm-hmm. So for me, like if I get burned out on a project, I might set it aside and say, okay, I'm not necessarily going to be done with it forever, but then I might decide later, I'll come back to it and then figure that out. Also, it depends, of course, on sales. Like I have a lot of people that ask me daily if I'm going to write more trackers books. And I don't think financially that would be a smart decision, although I might like to do that. Also, I really ended that series in a way that I thought was a good cutoff point. So creatively, I think that was the right move for me. Helldivers is one that's kind of in the middle right now. Like I love that storyline. Like I said, it sells well. People love it, in audio especially. So I don't know. It kind of really depends. The Extinction Cycle is one that I've really felt like at this point, it's gone on for a long time, and this is a good place to end it. And maybe fans would want more, but I don't think that I'm kind of burned out on it, to be honest.
Here's an interesting question that just came in. What is your most humbling experience as a writer?
Well, I think like I, in the beginning, felt like I was an imposter almost. I felt like my success was like, I felt like since I knew how to market, maybe my books sucked and I was just selling them because I knew how to sell books. And really, like my first series, Orbs, it didn't have proper science in it. It was totally like B-rated stuff that I would like to read, but hardcore science fiction readers did not like Orbs. And so I think that was really humbling for me because I thought it was good, sort of, but I was kind of confused. Like, I think I realized finally that it was the science that was lacking in that series. And there was a lot of things lacking in that series, I'll be honest, but it was the science, I think, that was the worst. So when I wrote the Extinction Cycle, I made sure, like, I spent so much time researching the science that went into the Extinction Cycle. And Tony Melchiori, who's my co-writer for season 2 now, he's a scientist, helped me create this virus that we literally like explain this step by step on how someone could turn into a zombie-like creature, like not an undead zombie, but a true predator. So the Extinction Cycle has a ton of science in it. And if you look on Amazon, the reviews compared to Orbs, you'll see like that. And I've really, so yeah, I guess the most humbling experience was just like putting a book out that I thought was good and then readers just tearing it apart. And for me having to accept like, or try to figure out like what I did wrong. It was a lot of different things though, honestly. It wasn't.
Yeah, Amazon reviews and Goodreads reviews for earlier works can be exceptionally humbling, can teach you quite a bit too about writing for a market. And I was having this conversation with my business partner A the other day. We're talking about some authors that we're familiar with who have been very butthurt by reviews on their first or second book. It's hard for people to understand. A guy like you spend months and months or years developing a series and characters, and you pour your heart into it, and then somebody reads 3 chapters and leaves a horrible review on Amazon. Yeah, it's kind of gutting. But you now are to the point where you have so many books out and have so much experience handling that. Do those harsh reviews still get to you, or are you now more, cool, man, you didn't dig that, that's not your thing, let me try again? How do you feel when the bad reviews come in?
I used to really take bad reviews to heart and get almost, I don't know, like some would upset me truly. But I really kind of broke away from that. I try to learn from reviews, but a lot of the reviews that you're going to see, like where someone read 3 chapters or a couple sentences, like I'm not going to learn anything from their review that says it's garbage. So I tried to read reviews that truly are like in Helldivers, like some of the bad reviews have helped me realize like what people didn't like about book 1. And then I really tried to fix those issues throughout the series. So I think there's a lot of things that an author can learn from the reviews. If they choose to do that. I'm not saying, like a lot of people say, don't read your reviews at all. I do read my reviews. The only reviews that really upset me are from other authors that are clearly trying to tear you down for a variety of different reasons. I've always had a policy of not leaving bad reviews myself, just because I just don't want to have, like, that's just not my personality. I'm a creator. I don't feel like I'm a critic either. So I do read books and leave reviews, but if it's not something I like, I don't review it. I just move on. And I'm not saying that's just my policy. Everyone has a different, way of doing things. But in terms of whether I take reviews to heart, absolutely, I still do. But not like I used to. I remember like when Orbs came out again, like the humbling experience, I was like kind of torn up and kind of confused, honestly, on like whether some of the reviews were real or what. But I realized in the long run, like as I've developed my craft and I really starting to hone in on how to write a book, that yeah, and even when you do everything you think you can do to make the perfect book, you're still going to get people that hate something about it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, very well, because your books do really, really well in audio, that sometimes it's not even the story, it's the narrator. So you get judged on a multiple different factors. So it's tough. But
I'll throw it. It is very tough. It is very tough. I'll throw this question that came out here. I feel like knowing you as I do, I know the answer to this already. So I'll answer it first. Somebody asked, have current events with COVID giving either of you an idea for future story? I'm at about like 10 right now.
I saw your Hornet thing today.
How about you, when you see these news stories? Is it for me? It's the flashing object. It's the fishing lure. I'm like, I got this story. I'm working really hard on it. Like, oh, look at this cool science development that came out. I want to write a book about it. Is that the same thing you go through?
There's one idea I came up with, but I've already written a story about a virus, the Extinction Cycle. Mm-hmm. And I'm also a little weary about writing to market. So like I see some authors doing these virus books, all of a sudden putting their books up for pre-order, like trying to cash in on the pandemic, which is fine. But I just don't like, I'm not interested enough in writing that storyline anymore, since I've already done it, to actually sit down and do that. There's one story that I've kind of like, maybe like post-pandemic, like 10 years from now, it wouldn't be like an actual through apocalyptic event. It would be kind of like Helldivers, long after the apocalypse happened. Mm-hmm. So yes, but I have so many other ideas that I want to write about. And I'm kind of just going through them one by one. It was like aliens, and then Helldivers. I don't even know what you call Helldivers. Like that's just I guess.
I think that's post-apocalyptic sci-fi. Or
sci-fi. I just don't know how to like categorize it. Like if it's, I don't know. But and the Extinction Cycle is for sure virus. Trackers is EMP. And then Sons of War is basically war fiction with. But and now I'm going into the AI. So I have like a list of different apocalypses I want to hit, and I don't know if I'd go back to a one that I've already hit before. What about you? Because you've written not plenty, but quite a few.
For me, it's having a rudimentary understanding of the science behind these things, and I've already touched heavily on pathogen-based apocalyptic story in the Infected trilogy, Infected, Contagious, and Pandemic.
Right.
But whenever something like this comes out, and part of my problem focusing on what I do is I read a science article, a political article, a comic relief article, and there's always a story idea in there.
Yeah.
So as you can, like, the odd thing is my ability to focus on one thing at one time is challenged always. And on the other end of things, here I am writing this 250,000 word book, and that has taken all my focus and trying to maintain that focus of the whole thing. So I dug myself a grave with this one, but maybe I'll be able to get to that, that sweet spot. That's what the publishers want, like 80 to 90,000 words. That's really good. Takes up less shelf space. There's a lot of reasons why they like those numbers. And they don't mind a great big fat book if it's somebody who's got a huge eye. Like George R. R. Martin can do whatever the hell he wants. Stephen King can do whatever the hell he wants. But trying to get down to that episodic feel that you've got going on, which I think it tailors itself very well to adaptation. And I know you haven't anything made yet, but I know there's interest in some of your works because of that Battlestar Galactica episodic type feel to it. Do you feel your work is going to set itself up to adaptation someday because of the tightness of the way you write?
I don't know. I mean, it's such a tough thing to have. So I've had Helldivers has been optioned twice now, and I think it'd probably take a big budget to make my books and to adapt my books into movies or TV shows. So that's one setback, I think. But I think they would translate well into that format. Again, it's just such a tough market, as you know. Like you get something optioned and maybe optioned a couple times, and there's a lot of excitement from Hollywood, and then there's nothing. And
Yep.
so, yeah, like I don't really ever think about that stuff anymore. I just keep writing. I don't think about how my stuff would translate. This is just the style that I write. Because it's also like I write what I like to read, and I write the way that I like to watch movies and TV shows. Like I'm watching Into the Night right now on Netflix, which is about these people on an airplane trying to escape the sun because the sun is the radiation from the sun is killing people on the surface, and each episode is like kind of a cliffhanger, and there's new challenges into each one of these, and that's kind of how I write too. I just love that kind of like breakneck thriller pacing, and you never know what's going to happen next. There's always a threat to the characters. So that's just kind of the way. I think I kind of taught myself how to do that though. Like it's nothing I really learned.
But that goes back to the things that you enjoy watching and reading. And when you read stuff like that, that's what gives you that heart-thumping thrill, and you want to capture that and give that to other people. Is that kind of why you gravitated towards this?
Yeah, definitely. So like, but I feel like you can do that in long books too. So I don't remember how long Earthcore was. Wasn't it like 120?
About 120, yeah.
Okay. So, and some of my Extinction Cycle books are 120, 130. I feel like you can still have a thriller that holds your attention. And readers actually, I think, appreciate longer books these days too, because there's so many people, so many authors that are kind of shortchanging the reader by putting these 50,000 word novels out on Amazon. So I like doing my sweet spot personally is 90 to 100,000 words. I can't really write a story less than that. So I think 250,000 is crazy to me, but Helldivers 7 was, I think it was 180,000 words before we edited it down to like 160 or something like that.
Wow.
But it just kept coming, and really, I knocked that one out pretty fast because sometimes that's just how the story goes. So I have a question for you about Earthcore. Like what inspiration, where did you get your inspiration for that book?
The inspiration for that book came all over the place. I'm a big biology buff, and you watch seeing things on cephalopods and cuttlefish, particularly cuttlefish that have such immense control over their body, their skin, that they can radiate all of these different colors. And by mixing their chromatophores, it's like this chromatophore is this big and this one's this big and that's pink, and then this one's small and this one's big and now it's red. It's magic to watch that stuff on YouTube, and that was a big inspiration. Part of the inspiration for that came from a really weird place, which was a John Travolta, Christian Slater movie called Broken Arrow. And in Broken Arrow, it's about a missing nuclear warhead. And for some reason, Christian Slater, fighter pilot, is the only one in America who can try and recover this warhead from crazy John Travolta.
Yeah, I kind of remember that movie, sort of.
But what happens in it is, spoiler alert, a bomb goes off, a nuclear bomb goes off deep underground, and there's this one scene where this molehill / hill mountain kind of lifts up and then comes back down. And it's near the finale of the movie. It's not too much of a spoiler. But watching that, I was like, wow, that's amazing. That something down there could set off such a big blast that it actually lifts up the topography. And I had no idea if the science was accurate in it or not, but that plus the concept of cuttlefish, plus I've always been fascinated by de-evolution. We always talk about evolution and the gradual increase of society. And then one of the pivotal books in my experience was Lord of the Flies, where here's this incredibly civilized British world and everything is fine and proper, but you dump a bunch of boys on an island, a bunch of boys 12 and under on an island with no supervision and no support, and who knows what could happen. Because I mean, if you've been in grade school, you've been in junior high, you know that kids can be just savages. So like those three huge influences coming together, like here is a creature on our planet that its physical abilities are so far beyond what we can do that it almost seems like an alien race. Mm-hmm. Then the concept of just that one scene of watching a mountain lift up, and then the Lord of the Flies thing, watching civilization collapse and watching people not just get gangster-like with each other, but factor that out over multiple generations, and watching knowledge decrease and a dark age happen. Now you're talking about like those three things came together with a few other influences and were the genesis of coming up with Earth Core. So my biggest thing is when 4 or 5 different influences come together to make something new. Like Helldivers, you can see the influences in Helldivers, but when you put it all together, that's something that nobody's done before. So we kind of gravitate, influence-wise, I think we gravitate in a similar direction there.
Yeah, interesting. So I'm interviewing you now, like in step. But I have another question for you, and it looks like we have one in the audience here, and we need to wrap this up soon. But I'm curious because your books, so Aliens even has some science in it, but your other books have a ton of science in it. And I was watching one of your live streams the other night about some of your influences there. But do you have a background in science, or is it just something you're really interested in?
It's something I'm really interested in. I was very close to going for a marine biology degree. That was my plan going back in like 7th, 8th grade, because I lived in the Pacific Northwest, lived in Cedar Woolley, Washington. We had access to Puget Sound. So I was taking classes and getting out to go see sea anemones and all the amazing wildlife out there. And then we moved back to where I was originally from, Northern Michigan. In Northern Michigan, there is, you can fish and you can hunt, but there's a much smaller biodiversity up there. So I was sort of taken away from that area, and the science curriculum there was not as involved. And that was about the time that I started to find out I had a knack for writing. And so for me, it was a tough call. Was I going to go into science in college or go into journalism, writing? And to be frank, I just sort of got kind of lazy. I'm like, if there's a term paper involved, I don't have to do anything. I'm just like, when it's time for that term paper to show up, I'm going to get an A. It's fine. And so when I went to college, I was like, well, if I go into journalism, this is writing. This is going to be a piece of cake. So that's kind of why I got away from science. But I'm still fascinated by science. Much of my social circle are scientists, and I have been able to cultivate several scientists who review my work and consult with me, and I'm able to bounce ideas off of all the time. And now what's really fun is some of these people I grew up with, and now they're PhDs and leaders in the field. Other people I met at cons, other crazy geeks who started to gravitate towards my fiction. And, being able to go to somebody who has a PhD with an idea like, okay, how would this work? This is what I want to do to make the story go forward. I would like for people to be able to go invisible. How do we make this work? And then you'll watch the scientists push back and be like, okay, here's 18 reasons why that can't happen. But eventually they get the bug and they'll call you back a week later, like, wait a minute, I just thought of something. Now this isn't physically possible, but it sounds possible. And I'm like, perfect. That's what I'm talking about. Let's make this plausible.
Yeah.
Eventually it becomes the point you just bounce ideas off. One of my consultants is in the audience right now. Dr. Nicole Gallucci is, astronomer, and getting to pitch these ideas off of people who are experts is fun. And what winds up being really exciting is it's very fun for them, because as a creator, you are not as restrained by what has been drilled into their heads as this is fact and law, and these things are possible and these things aren't. And you get to kind of throw them curveballs, and they enjoy curveballs, and they like getting their brain pushed in a different direction, which is part of why they became scientists in the first place. So for me, it's working hand in hand with the scientists that I know, and the firefighters, and the people with military experience, and the doctors, and these people who are absolute experts in their field. And when you come to them, it's usually the same thing. I think you probably find this too. You come to them and be like, I want to get this as right as possible and still respect your actual work and your field, so that someone who is an astronomer, who is a fireman, who reads it, isn't like, gee, couldn't this guy find a fireman? They're everywhere. All you have to do is email a firehouse. You know, like that kind of thing is where I get my satisfaction. So very excited about science, love science. I'm always about science. Science is our future going forward as a nation, as a people, as a world. And I get to work that into my fiction.
I agree. And that's kind of how, you know, with the Extinction Cycle, I was talking about Tony, Dr. Melchiori. Same thing there. I was like, how can I make this happen? And he'd come up with ideas, and eventually it just became part of the story. So that's one really fun part of being an author, is coming up with ideas, but then having people tell you whether it's feasible or not at all. And I actually need an astronomer, so maybe I'll talk to you later about that. I'm trying to find
I got a bunch.
Because one of my stories takes place on the moon. So, but one last thing, you're in. So you love science, but you also love football, and that's one thing. Your books are so diverse. So you have sci-fi. You also have sci-fi in your Galactic Football League series as well. And so I've been reading those, and with the characters, the aliens, like, it's just amazing how you came up with other cultures truly within alien races that are playing this sport that you love so much. It's just a really cool, unique premise.
As a nerd, I like Star Trek, and I like Star Wars and all of the sci-fi, but as a kid, not really understanding the limitations of Hollywood and special effects, I would get so frustrated with Star Trek. I'd be like, why do they all look like people with some stuff on their nose? This is not how evolution works. So I kind of got the concept of evolution very early, like a lot of science-minded kids do, and it was super frustrating to me. Like, give me something that doesn't look like us with blue skin. And when you get older, you realize, oh, okay, well, you know, the Star Trek, there's no way they could have made an actual alien-looking alien.
Yeah.
And then you get into writing, and you're like, oh, I can actually conceptually evolve a sentient species from the single cell through their natural biospheres on their planet to get to the point where they are dominant species and achieve sentience and move on. And a couple of things I looked at in that series was, I don't think these pie-in-the-sky worlds like Gene Roddenberry had, where everybody just gets along and there's no money and we all love each other, those things are just not going to happen. We can't even do that on this planet. The drive to kill things that don't look like us and the drive to gain power and dominance are part of why human beings are the dominant species on the planet. So I think those drives, we will see those drives when hopefully we get to meet races from other sentient races, things from across the galaxy. They're going to be weird, hard to communicate with. They're going to be horribly ugly. They're going to think we're ugly. But some of the basics are going to be consistent. That drive for power, that quest to conquer, and that natural instinct to destroy that which is different from us. And I was able to factor that all in. That all being said, that parlayed into my sports background, which I was always frustrated as a crazy nerd jock, which is a rare subset, in that my nerd friends never really gave sports any respect. They thought jocks were stupid, and they didn't appreciate the kind of intelligence it takes to succeed in that particular skill set. You have to have the genetics to have the great physicality to be able to play. You've got to have the work ethic, and then your brain on a football field, your brain has to be able to do mass computation incredibly fast, and you can train that computation to get better at it. An NFL quarterback is one of the smartest people on the planet. And people who argue with that don't really understand the amount of processing that their brain has to do in real time as some of the most dominant athletes that have ever lived on this planet are trying to hurt them and come at them. So the GFL was a way to kind of bring my two worlds together, bring my nerd friends together and teach them the incredible complexity of a game like football. And then some of the football fans I was able to share biology and sociology and a few other things involved there as well.
That's so cool.
It's a very fun series, but I've got thousands of hardcore nerds right now. That's the email I get the most often. You talk about the emails you get. The one I get is like, I thought football was for idiots and I never liked it. I read your book. Now I have a rudimentary understanding of the game. And now I see that I was disrespecting other human beings and their intellect. Now I understand this. There's way more to this than I thought. So it's kind of funny. It builds a lot of bridges. It's neat.
That's so cool. I didn't even think about it that way. I was just, when I was reading it, because I like sports too. I'm more of like an individual sports guy doing triathlons and stuff, but I won't get into all that. But yeah, I enjoy competition, and reading those books just honestly inspired me for my new series I'm writing, because I want to have a futuristic sport in it. So yeah, that gave me some ideas, but I know we need to wrap this up here. I think there was one more question. Are we done?
Oh, we do have time. We can do that one more question. We can do it as a quick round. Hey, everyone,
that's
I'm
okay.
sorry. You guys are having such a good conversation. I hate to have to be the
feel like we're just
time restraining person. But if you want to do like a quick 1 or 2 sentence answer, it's a fun question to end the event on. And it's just, have you had an idea so insane for a book that you haven't written it because positive no one would be interested in it?
Did you say because readers wouldn't be interested in it?
Yes, that's what it says. Have you had something so insane of an idea that you haven't written it because you're positive no one would be interested in it except for yourself?
I don't think I have. No. I mean, I've got a lot of stuff where, personally, I have a lot of stuff where I'm like, this is a great idea, and then you parlay out the plot, come up with an ending concept, and then you're just like, yeah, it's a super cool idea, but I can't think of a way to apply that where it'll be interesting through a whole book.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the best answer. I've had ideas that I think are great and interesting, but I can't figure out how to make a good, captivating product that's worth people's time and money out of it.
Gotcha.
This book was probably mine. So I'll end with that.
You in 2021. Well, I think that is an awesome note to end things on. Scott and Nick, thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having us. This was great.
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream if you guys can hang on for just a second.
Okay,
all of our readers and viewers who tuned in tonight, thank you so much. Don't forget, both of their books can be purchased on our website, and we've got book plates and everything. So the link is going to be provided for you guys. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys later. Bye.